Let's talk about hiring a private investigator to do a background on yourself. Should you hire a private investigator to do a background on yourself? Can you even hire a PI to do a background on yourself? So I'll answer that last question first. Can you hire a PI to do a background on yourself? And the answer is quite simply, yes, you can. In fact, I have had many clients in the past hire us to do backgrounds on themselves. Now, one reason you might want to do this is if you're going into a marriage situation, pre-marriage, prenuptial agreement, things like that. If you're looking at furthering a relationship, if you will, you might want to do this on yourself. You may also want to do this on your significant other, your fiance, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whomever, just to see what's going on in their life or what has gone on in their life. And we have had clients ask us to do a pre-marriage background on themselves. And what they wanted to know is if their fiance, if their boyfriend, if their girlfriend wanted to know what was in their past, what are they going to find out there? There's a lot of stuff out there on the internet, and they want to know what's really out there. So they'll hire us to do that. Another reason we've been hired to do backgrounds on our clients themselves is when it's coming to employment screening. If they are applying for new jobs, or let's say they've got a new one and it's looking promising, they've done some interviews, and they want to know what the employer is going to find out about them in case they ask, then they'll ask us to do an employment screening background on them, just like if we were doing it for a company, but we would do it for our client. This video is sponsored by OREP Insurance and Working PI Magazine. OREP is a leading provider of private investigator liability insurance. Visit orep.org for a quote today. This usually involves somebody that's looking at a higher level type of a job, CEO, COO, CFO, something like that, or even a board of directors for a large corporation. Personal safety concerns is another reason that a client might ask us to do a background check on themselves. They want to see if there's potential online stalking or online harassment and proof of that online. It doesn't come up often, but it does come up from time to time. And similar to employment backgrounds, a mortgage or a loan application background is something else that we might conduct for a client on themselves. So if they are going to be looking at buying a new home and they want to know what's going to come up, they might ask us to do a full background on them to include a financial background. They also might want to do that on their spouse so they know what's going to come up. So they need to know how to answer questions that the bank or the mortgage company might ask them. Another thing that we have done these for is business partner screening. So if we have a client that's looking into entering a business partnership or a business agreement with somebody, they might ask us to do a background on the other individual or individuals, but often they'll ask us to do a background on themselves. So they can look and they can see what are the other people going to see about them. Probably one of the biggest reasons a client asks us to do a background on themselves is in divorce or custody case situations. Now, oftentimes it might be our client's attorney that asks us to do a background on the client so the attorney knows what to expect. They need to know what the other side knows about them, and they need to know how to react to those situations. This is one that's come up a time or two, and that was for educational verification or college or university verification. It's difficult to do. It's not super difficult, but you need to know the steps on how to do that. And usually to do that, you need the other person's permission to be able to do that. But I have had clients say, well, I know that I got my degree at such and such a university, but I call and for some reason I can't get that from them. Is there a way you can verify if I did or did not get that? And a big one is high stakes business negotiations. I have had a lot of clients that have larger corporations. They're working on contracts that are not just in the thousands or tens of thousands, but in the hundreds of thousands, millions, and even billions of dollars. And they want to know what the other side is up to. They want to know the background of of the CEO, the background of the COO. They want to know all this information, the background of the board members. They want to know who they're dealing with when it comes to business. But they also want to know what's on their background, because they know the other side is just as smart when it comes to these high-stake business negotiations, and they know that they are going to be doing backgrounds on them. And one thing that is common, no matter what the reason, a lot of times it's preemptive. People are thinking down the road. What if I am going to get married? What if I get offered a CEO position or a COO position or some big job at some big company? What happens if I go into a business negotiation with a big partner out there? What is going to come up on my background? I need to find that out now, and I need to figure out how to mitigate that and eliminate any negative things out there, especially things that are untrue. Now let's talk about what that background check for our client might uncover and make our client more aware of that's out there in the public domain. Infidelity in domestic situations is one of those things that we often uncover. It may be a situation that was from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, but it's out there on somebody's social media post or just out there on a blog post or something. Maybe it's an old court record or something, but it's out there. And if somebody's digging hard enough, they're going to find that information. So our clients may want to know, is that something that somebody might be able to discover? As well, financial irregularities, things like bankruptcies, liens, judgments, things like that. What is out there? And a lot of times people they don't remember things as clearly. You know, what happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, or even more. So they need to know what's going to come up. And that's really important, especially if somebody is looking at one of those high-profile jobs or a high-profile business engagement with somebody or business partnership with somebody. If you have a bankruptcy or liens or judgments in your past, that may make a big difference whether somebody's going to consider you for, let's say, a chief financial officer's position or chief executive or chief operations or even just a higher level manager at any big corporation. Criminal history is something else that we're looking for when we're doing background checks for our clients. It could be past convictions. It could be current pending charges that could affect employment or business partnerships or even immigration status and other things like that. One of the things that I have seen that comes up sometimes when people do public searches on somebody, they'll see one of those criminal background check sites online, and you punch in somebody's name and their date of birth and it'll say they've got 10 records out there. And what it really is, when you drill down and you get that information, it's not really 10 criminal history records. It might be 3 or 4 speeding tickets or moving violations or something silly like that. But these databases just pick that up. So our clients want to know what's out there and what can they do, what steps can they do to get those things taken off of the internet or even possibly taken off the record. Another thing is disreputable associations. One of the things that we do when we do a background on anybody, especially if it's for our client doing a background on themselves, we are going to look for all known associates in all of our databases as well through our social media digging and things like that. You want to make sure that you're not tied to known scammers or con artists or criminals or other untrustworthy individuals in case somebody else is doing a background on you. And then there's what I'll refer to as emotional baggage. Records of emotional distress, mental health concerns, substance abuse issues, things like that. Are those things going to come up if somebody does a background on you? And some of that might seem like it's not real easy to find out. Substance abuse, for instance, drug use. But if somebody was arrested for possession of a drug, maybe they weren't convicted, maybe the charges were dropped, but they have an arrest record of that, how is that going to affect them? And then professional misconduct. Allegations of professional misconduct would be things like malpractice or professional licensing issues. Is that information out there? What can be found about that information? Is it accurate? Is it true? Can it be removed? And then again, just going through for a client to see what publicly available court records and things like that are out there. Are there past lawsuits? Were they sued for this or sued for that? Divorces, what happened in those divorce proceedings, child custody proceedings, and other publicly accessible court documents. That's something that a lot of people want us to pull and see what's really out there, what people can find. One of the things that I always caution people with on any backgrounds, whether it's on themselves or on somebody else, is make sure that you validate and verify all of that information. And ask the private investigator who provides you the report to tell you how they validated and verified that information too. Because sometimes you can pop something into a database and it comes up, but it's not accurate. And then it's not anywhere else either. I have had that come up where I have had criminal things come up on a person on a background, but then when I went to the court or I went to the city or the county or wherever to try to validate that information, it wasn't true. It was a problem with the data being incorrect in that particular database. So make sure that you validate that. Now, if you want to know more about what a private investigator can do for you, then check out this video.